Hey class, Miss Johnson here again. We are going to finish reading our book today. We only have 2 more chapters, and just like on Tuesday, I'm going to read 2 chapters. I thought it was a little too long to wait to read 1 chapter today and 1 chapter on Tuesday. We just can't wait that long to finish the book. I'm a little impatient, as you can tell. I want to see what happens at the end. All right, my friends. So we ended right at the end of chapter 8, where here's a picture to help you, where the T-Rex is coming towards Jack, okay? And we also know that Annie was talking to the Pteranodon and pretending to flap her wings. And we left right where the Pteranodon was gliding over to Jack. And I left you with you predicting what the Pteranodon's going to do to either help or protect Jack from the T-Rex. So we're going to see what happens in chapters 9 and how the story ends in chapter 10. All right, my friends, let's start reading. All right. The amazing ride. The Pteranodon coasted down to the ground. He stared at Jack with his bright, alert eyes. What was Jack supposed to do? Climb on? But I'm too heavy, thought Jack. Don't think, just do it. Jack looked at the Tyrannosaurus. He was staring up the hill. His giant teeth were flashing in the sunlight. Okay, don't think, just do it. Jack put his book in his pack. Then he eased down onto the Pteranodon's back. He held on tightly. The creature moved forward. He spread out his wings and lifted off the ground. They teetered this way, then that. So that means they kind of lean to the left or lean to the right. So that's what teetered means. Kind of like a teeter-totter or like maybe like like a seesaw. That's what I'm trying to think of. The Pteranodon steadied himself, then rose into the sky. Jack looked down. The Tyrannosaurus was chomping the air and staring up at it. The Pteranodon glided away. He sailed over the hilltop. He circled over the valley, over all the nests filled with babies, over all the giant duck-billed dinosaurs. Then the Pteranodon soared out over the plain, over the Triceratops who was grazing in the high grass. It was amazing. It was a miracle. Jack felt like a bird, as light as a feather. So we learned that the Pteranodon was going to help him by picking him up and flying him to safety. The wind was rushing through his hair. The air smelled sweet and fresh. He whooped. He laughed. Jack couldn't believe it. He was riding on the back of an ancient flying reptile. That'd be pretty fun if you weren't a dater. For me, at least. The Pteranodon sailed over the stream, over the ferns and bushes. Then he carried Jack down to the base of the oak tree. When they came to a stop, Jack slid off the creature's back and landed on the ground. Then the Pteranodon took off again and glided into the sky. "Bye, Henry," whispered Jack. "Are you okay?" Annie shouted from the treehouse. Jack pushed his glasses into place. He kept staring up at the Pteranodon. "Jack, are you okay?" Annie called. Jack looked up at Annie. He smiled. "Thanks for saving my life," he said. "That was really fun." "Climb up," said Annie. Jack tried to stand. His legs were wobbly. He felt a bit dizzy. "Hurry," shouted Annie. "He's coming." Jack looked around. The Tyrannosaurus was heading straight toward him. Jack bolted to the ladder. He grabbed the sides and started up. "Hurry, hurry," Annie said. Jack scrambled into the treehouse. "He's coming toward the tree," Annie cried. Suddenly, something slammed against the oak tree. The treehouse shook like a leaf. Annie and Jack tumbled into the books. "Make a wish," cried Annie. "We need the book." And one with the picture of Frog Creek, said Jack. "Where is it?" He pushed some books aside. He had to find the book about Pennsylvania. There it was. He grabbed it and tore through it, looking for the photograph of the Frog Creek woods. He found it. Jack pointed to the picture. "I wish we could go home," he shouted. The wind began to moan, softly at first. "Hurry!" Jack yelled. The wind picked up. It was whistling now. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Jack closed his eyes. He held on tightly to Annie. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. When the treehouse began to spin the last time, that's when they went back almost 65 million years ago to the dinosaurs. So hopefully the treehouse gets them back to Frog Creek. Chapter 10, we're going to find out. Home before dark. A bird began to sing. Jack opened his eyes. He was still pointing at the picture of the Frog Creek woods. Let me turn that off. Okay. Jack opened his eyes. He was still pointing at the picture of the Frog Creek woods. He peeked out the treehouse window. Outside, he saw the exact same view. "We're home," whispered Annie. The woods were lit with a golden late afternoon light. The sun was about to set. No time had passed since they'd left. So they came back just to when they came back to their normal time, but it was like none of the time had passed. "Jack! Annie!" a voice called from the distance. "That's Mom," said Annie, pointing. Here's the picture. Jack saw their mother far away. She was standing in front of their house. She looked very tiny. "Annie! Jack!" she called. Annie stuck her head out the window and shouted, "Coming!" Jack still felt dazed. He just stared at Annie. So dazed means maybe he felt a little dizzy, a little confused, maybe a little overwhelmed. So this is Jack talking. "What happened to us?" he said. "We took a trip in a magic treehouse," said Annie simply. "But it's the same time as when we left," said Jack. Annie shrugged. "And how did it take us so far away?" said Jack. "And so long ago. You just looked at a book and you wished we could go there," said Annie. "And the magic treehouse took us there." "But how?" said Jack. "And who built this magic treehouse? Who put all these books here?" "A magic person, I guess," said Annie. "A magic person?" "Oh, look," said Jack. "I almost forgot about this." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the gold medallion. "Someone lost this back there in Dinosaur Land. Look, there's a letter M on it." Annie's eyes got round. "You think M stands for magic person?" she said. "I don't know," said Jack. "I just know someone went to that place before us." "Jack! Annie!" came the distant cry again. Annie poked her head out the window. "Coming!" she shouted. Jack put the gold medallion back in his pocket. He pulled the dinosaur book out of his pack and put it back with all the other books. Then he and Annie took one last look around the treehouse. "Goodbye, house," whispered Annie. Jack slung his backpack over his shoulder. He pointed at the ladder. Annie started down. Jack followed. Seconds later, they hopped onto the ground and started walking out of the woods. "No one's going to believe our story," said Jack. "So let's not tell anyone," said Annie. "Dad won't believe it," said Jack. "He'll say it was a dream," said Annie. "Mom won't believe it," said Jack. "She'll say it was pretend," said Annie. "My teacher won't believe it," said Jack. "She'll say you're nuts," said Annie. "We better not tell anyone," said Jack. "I already said that," said Annie. Jack sighed. I think I'm starting to not believe it myself," he said. They left the woods and started up the road toward their house. As they walked past all the houses on their street, the trip to Dinosaur Time did seem more and more like a dream. Only this world and this time seemed real. Jack reached into his pocket. He clasped the gold medallion, so he held on to it really tight. Last page. He felt the engraving of the letter M. It made Jack's fingers tingle. Jack laughed. Suddenly he felt very happy. He couldn't explain what had happened today, but he knew for sure that their trip in the magic treehouse had been real. Absolutely real. "Tomorrow," Jack said softly, "we'll go back to the woods." "Of course," said Annie. "And we'll climb up the treehouse," said Jack. "Of course," said Annie. "And we'll see what happens next," said Jack. "Of course," said Annie. "Race you!" And they took off together, running for home. The end. That was such a good book. I hope you all enjoyed reading this chapter book with me. This may have been your first chapter book you've read ever, or maybe it's maybe you've already read a few with your parents or siblings. But I really enjoyed reading this book with you, and I hope that you all got a lot out from it. All right, my friends, so that's it for this book. I will be updating you soon on maybe a few other things we'll do over video. I'm just not sure yet, so I'm keeping it all up here until I have all the details kind of organized and ready to tell you all. But again, I really enjoyed reading this book to you, and I do wish we could have been together to read it, but make the best out of any situation. So I love you all. I miss you all so much, and I hope you all are doing well and staying safe. And I will just talk to you all later, okay? Bye, guys.